5. Who would like to lead us? Jerry, since you said we could do that, would you like to lead it?
All right. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the
of the United States of America,
to the
and to the republic for which it stands,
one
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So since
Nice touch, including the flag there.
Yeah, that was very nice.
It's good to see your face, Jerry.
Thank you.
It
I
is.
still
On
have
camera now.
one.
It's very good.
I'm just looking forward to our being able to all meet together again.
Yes. So the first item, I guess, is if there's any public comments on any items that are not on the agenda. Do we have any public out there? So if there's
We have two attendees, but no public comment at this time.
Okay, all right, thank you. Then we'll go on to the consent agenda. It has 3 things on it: minutes of the May 19th board meeting, the May 2021 retirement report, and the preliminary monthly financial report. Does anybody have anything they would like to pull off the consent agenda for further discussion? Okay, so if everybody is okay with the consent agenda, then we will say that it is approved by whatever. Acclamation, what's the word?
You could say acclamation, unanimous consent.
Unanimous.
I think you're doing great.
Yeah, thanks. It's been a while. I didn't think about running a meeting this morning. I've been retired for 6 years. My goodness.
You're just a babe retiree, Catherine.
Yes, I know it. I know. So agenda item number 2, discussion and possible action regarding, oops, that's what we have. We don't have anything on 2. 3, discussion regarding the historical benefit review project status report and project updates. So Doris.
Thank you, Vice Chair Smith. The status report for the project is in your packets. As of last month, the staff had completed 229 of the initial 545 corrections. I reordered the pages and put the summary page first, but this is the same report, all the same information you had before. The pages are just in a different order. If you have any questions regarding any part of the project, I'm happy to answer any questions you have at this time.
Anybody have any questions for Director Inchler?
No, but I feel like I'm sitting in a hole. This chair is very low. So
We get to see your
I'm not
face
really
from the chin up.
leaning my chin on the table, but my short stature plus a low chair. Anyway.
You need a pillow.
I do, but I'm down at the retirement office. So
Yeah.
My only question is, I see that you've went ahead and put the months forward for the future corrections added through December. And I imagine this is going to maybe end up taking longer than December. So I was just curious. Well, I see August, September, October, November totals in the spreadsheet. So you're just preparing for those months, I see. And I assume we don't expect this to be done by December at this rate?
That's correct. I do not expect the project to be completed by December. Those are just placeholders to allow me to insert lines into the spreadsheet that already has the subtotal functions in it, but it will be expanded to include additional months as the project moves forward.
I was hopeful for a second that it might be finished up that quick, but I know it's quite a large project, and that's just dreaming.
No, there essentially is no way that we would be finished at December at this point.
Thank you.
So I have a question for the executive director. It looks like on this month we had a higher number of no change results. I think there was 9 of them for June. Are those people that did receive a notice that their benefit was going to change and now we've determined it's not, or how did that work out?
That's correct.
Okay,
When we originally reviewed the account, they had an issue that we thought may change their benefit. So we included them and did a thorough recalculation to determine that there was no error. The issue we thought might exist for them did not actually affect them.
very good. And I think there was like 3 in February or 4 in February. So there's been a couple of them, but I assume those were a list of the members that had gotten the notice and now are getting told that it's not going to change. So, okay. Thank you.
And Doris, my question was, the retro payments of 800 and whatever thousand, have those all been paid out?
Yes, this report reflects the activity to date. So those payments have been made.
Okay. Okay. Any other comments or questions on the historical benefit review project?
I do have public comment.
Okay.
Hello.
Terry?
Yes,
Can you
Terry.
hear me? Good morning.
Good
I
morning.
wanted to comment on the process here. I believe that the board is compounding, the injustice of this whole process with another injustice. First, you're penalizing retirees for negligence by the association. And this morning, I saw in some of the documents that apparently some of the problem arose from an actuarial Excel calculator that came up in one of the appeals. So I would question why you're not looking for some remedy from that actuarial. The second injustice is the process. You sent out letters in November. You're now telling people you're not going to complete the process this year. What comes to my mind is pulling a Band-Aid off a wound. I fail to understand why you have not invested in hiring whoever is necessary, who has the expertise to do this and get it done. I, for instance, am trying to make plans to visit family on the East Coast. Yay, people I haven't seen in over a year. And I have no idea when this letter is going to come in the mail to me. When I first got the November letter, every time I went to the mailbox, I was rifling through the mail looking for the letter. And then as time went on, I realized this was not going to be a speedy event. You've only processed half of these. Do you realize that there are 300 people who used to work for the county plus who are out there waiting to hear what's happening to their benefits? This is outrageous. And I know many of you probably, well, I don't know, many of you were not on the board when this was happening, that the administrator is long gone when this was happening. But I fail to understand why at this time you are not bringing all the resources to bear to resolve this. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry, for your comments. Was there another comment, Judy?
No other public comment at this time.
Any statement or response at all? Well, we thank the public for whatever comments you have and will provide, and we will take everything into consideration. So thank you for participating. I do see that Chair Jurdy is back. So Dan, we have just gone over agenda item number 3 on the historical benefit review project report. So we're ready for agenda item number 4, and I'll let you take over. You're on mute though.
Thank you. Okay, so we're on to monthly investment report.
Morning, board. Callan won't be here today. They will be here next month, and we'll get a budget. We'll have an update from them next month. They're not here today. Overall, you can see that our performance has slowed down a little bit over the last month here. Overall, we just barely squeaked past our benchmark rate of 1.2%. The total fund return was 1.09%. As has been fairly typical since November of last year, our international equity return has kind of pulled us along for our total return for the course of the year. As of yesterday, we were around 695 million. So the portfolio has continued to grow over the last few weeks. And, you know, I'm getting excited for the end of the year. In terms of any kind of other update, there's been one interesting change that is going to be going forward in terms of one of our real estate managers, Reef. They recently, well, you may be aware that they were one of the major contributors originally to the index that we use for real estate, the NFI Odyssey index. And that index has had very little substantive changes over the last 15 years. But what is going to be occurring is that index has made some changes overall. Again, because they haven't made any of these changes really in the past 15 years. There are 3 big changes that the index is going to be doing. Number 1, they're allowing leverage. They're allowing funds that have leverage up to 35% into the Odyssey index. Previously, that number was 30%. So they're slightly increasing that leverage amount as inclusion criteria. The second thing that they're changing is they are going to be removing the joint venture limitation on projects. Currently, right now, they've got a 10% limitation on joint venture projects. But in an effort to align themselves with the Odyssey, because of these changes in the Odyssey index, the refund's going to be making those changes as well. The last bit of update is it's kind of a general theme. All 3 of these changes are going to slightly increase the risk in the fund a little bit. That's unfortunately just the nature of the real estate landscape at this time. But what that means is they're going to have a test to determine what is core and what is non-core going forward. They currently don't have this test. That test is relatively simple. It's going to consist of making sure that any project is at least 75% leased. And so that's going to be this kind of a new criteria for their non-core projects. I am not that concerned about the changes. These changes probably have been a long time coming, a lot longer than I've been around. Some of these basic requirements really haven't changed. And so now that they have, and there's a new landscape in the real estate market, DWS is working to align themselves with that. So overall, slight increase in the risk of the fund, but not significant. In fact, it's actually lining the fund up with their benchmark, which they really helped to start about 15 years ago. So, that's kind of a short little brief update on big news for REEF.
All right. Any questions for Robert? Okay. Or were you finished, Robert? You had more?
Yeah, just hoping for the year end.
Do we have any public comments on this agenda item?
No public comment.
Okay. All right, then item number 5, which is discussion possible action regarding the revised fiscal year 21-22 budget.
Yeah, board. Doris, I don't know. Did you wanna start on this?
Sure. Thank you, Chair Judy, members of the board. At last month's meeting, you adopted the budget proposal that Robert had put together for fiscal year 22. At that time, we did not know the salary impact of the potential classification study. The classification study went to the Civil Service Commission and was approved by Civil Service last month. And we subsequently got updated salary information from Human Resources. So this revised budget just shows the effect of the salary changes provided by Human Resources relating to the classification study. The classification study recommendations will be going to the Board of Supervisors at the June 22nd meeting, but we've included them in the budget that was submitted to the county. If you have any questions, Robert and I am happy to answer any questions.
One thing I want to mention is, I realize that there is a concern about breaking the 2100% for our administrative overhead. And there are a number of things that potentially could have been done in this budget proposal that would have allowed us to potentially be under that cap. The reality of that is that we're not so sure that that's realistic. And so parts of this budget have essentially remained unchanged. And so you can see that in a couple of the subsections and line items, specifically disability. That would be the biggest one. That subsection really hasn't changed in terms of budget for the last 5 years-ish, something like that. That's a potential spot that we really haven't touched or attempted to peel down. Now, that's not the case in the personnel line item. The personnel line item is the single factor that is really driving this this limit breach here. And one thing also that I do want to reiterate again is that personnel dollar amount is fully loaded with 2 extra staff members. And so I'm kind of going back to the public comment that was just made. And that's something that I'd like to point out is this budget includes a half-time extra help person that is not currently employed. And it also includes 1 full-time, fully benefited retirement specialist. We haven't had the opportunity to run that publicly yet. That's in the works, and we're going to do that. But it is going to take us some time to actually fill that position. And so my expectation is that even though the numbers you see here are 100% fully loaded from day one, there's no way that we're going to find that person and get them working here and trained up probably before September. And so there is built into the numbers here, there's a little bit of a cushion. And so I do want to reiterate that again to the board. In years past, we've been able to tell you really how much it's going to cost. This year, because of timing, we haven't. And in fact, these numbers that you see before you still haven't technically been approved by the Board of Supervisors, which that will need to happen also. And so basically there's a couple unknowns here. And, you know, that's the primary reason for this breach here.
Okay, thank you. Questions and comments first from Jim and then from Julie.
Yeah, Robert and Doris, I'm just kind of curious why, knowing what you know, you didn't, for instance, do 3/4 of a year of those position and benefit costs. Not an uncommon budgeting practice. Why you chose to go with July 1. Thank you.
I believe that's the way Human Resources provides us with salary information. We did not prorate it down. We should have the extra help person starting June 28th. That's to replace the one who quit in March. And we do have the position that we're asking for as far as to be approved with the budget cycle to add the additional retirement specialist. But the budget reflects the full cost, even though that person won't be on board starting on July 1.
Okay, thank you. Julie?
So I just wanted to comment that although this may push us near the 21 basis points or the cost, it's the tipping point. It's not the cause of it. Let's just say we have other increased expenses in the budget, such as attorney fees because of the historical benefit review project, which we'll be talking about next. So I'm happy that the staff is having appropriate compensation so we can get qualified people, so we can probably avoid the situation that we're in with the historical benefit review. And I'm supportive of it. And I don't think that the salaries are the issue with the budget. We should probably look at other ways that we can save costs and in order to protect, you know, our limits. But I don't think that the personnel is the issue. I think we need to look at the overall budget. So thank you, Robert, for your comments.
Okay. Any other board member questions or comments? Do we have any members of the public wishing to comment on this item?
No public comment at this time.
Okay. Okay. Catherine?
I will make a motion to approve the revised budget as presented.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Can we have a roll call?
Ms. Schuttmeyer?
Yes.
Ms. Forrester?
Yes.
Ms. Cavanis?
Yes.
Mr. Jurdy?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Cromer?
Aye.
Ms. Harris?
Aye.
And Mr. Anderson?
Yes.
Thank you. Approved.
Okay, thanks. So now we're on to discussion possible action regarding the Hanson and Bridget fiscal year 21-22, 22-23 contracts. Oh, so go ahead, Robert.
Just real quick here, can we for sure, and maybe Jeff can clarify this, but since we are kind of breaching that 0.21%, can we have an actual separate vote that technically approves us to do that, even though we're approving it implicitly here. Is that something that we need to do, Jeff?
So I haven't had any discussions with the executive director or staff about this issue. So this is the first I'm hearing about it, but I'm not seeing any issues or concerns at this point. Doris?
Well, the board does have a board policy saying that they will adhere to the 21 basis point of the AAL for the administrative budget. That is not strictly required by the CIRL. We're still within the guidelines as far as the law, which would allow a $2 million budget or 21 basis points. And we are below the $2 million. So I don't know if because there is a board policy, there needs to be a separate motion. I think it's rather implied with the fact that the board is adopting a budget that exceeded their policy, which was discussed last time in May when it was adopted.
So after hearing that discussion, if I may, through the chair, I'm comfortable. I don't think you need to take a separate vote. I think it's part of the discussion at this point and part of the basis for the action that you just took. If anybody disagrees or feels like you want to have a vote to do that, you certainly can, but I don't think it's necessary.
Okay, thank you. Not seeing any hands raised. Okay, great. Well, let's go on to the Bridget Hanson contracts.
Thank you, Chair Judy, members of the board. Our tax counsel is Hanson Bridget. Their contract is set for renewal for the new fiscal year starting July 1 of 2021. There are two items in this agenda today regarding tax counsel. One is a recommendation for approval of a contract for fiscal year 21-22, and that is includes a fee cap of $60,000 as we expect the project to run down and have less need for tax counsel. We do not feel an increase in the cap would be necessary. Since we have two different items, I don't know if you want to discuss this one first and then take a motion on it and then discuss the other item, or if you'd like to do both now.
I think we could probably have a motion for both at the same time.
Okay, as far as the second item on the agenda regarding tax counsel, it relates to this year's contract that is expiring at June 30. And due to volume of work and assistance that we had with tax counsel this year, we have exceeded the cap that was in that contract of $60,000. We are asking to expand the contract to a total of $100,000 for the current fiscal year to allow us to cover the added expenses that we experienced in the current year.
Okay, any questions or comments on the contracts? Judy, do we have any public comments on the contracts?
No public comment at this time.
Okay. Would someone like to make a motion?
I'll move.
A second.
Okay, got a motion and a second to approve the fiscal year 21-22 amended contract and fiscal year 22-23 or 21-22 contract. Can we have a roll call?
Yes. Ms. Schottmeyer?
Yes.
Ms. Forrester?
Yes.
Ms. Cavanis? Ms. Cavanis?
Sorry about that.
Judy? Thank you. Mr. Jurdy?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Cromer?
Aye.
Ms. Harris?
Aye.
And Mr. Anderson?
Yes.
Thank you. Approved.
Okay, that takes us to discussion regarding the administrative report.
I think you skipped a couple things.
Oh, you're right. Discussion of possible action regarding the resolution 2021, defining compensation pension earnable, pension, et cetera. No, item number 7.
Thank you, Chair Jurdy, members of the board. This resolution for defining compensation earnable for our legacy members is really a little bit of a cleanup and an update. The County of Mendocino at the request of SEIU changed the description of pay code 331 from union mentor time to SEIU mentor officer time. And along with that change, we made some additional corrections for an omitted code that had to do with the coronavirus response paid leave time. So really everything in this resolution is to account for the title change of one of the pay codes and to correct for some typos and an omitted code.
Okay, do we have any questions or comments on the amendment? Do we have any public comment on this item?
Sorry, no public comment at this time. Can I ask for a quick break? I have an attendee who's trying to join the meeting. We're having technical difficulty. May I have a few minutes, please?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay.
Hopefully she got it figured out.
So we're not being listened to at this point, right? Doris, Dan.
Being broadcast, I don't know. I would
Okay.
avoid crosstalk.
Hello, Judy, we don't have your audio.
Muted.
Sorry. I'm back. I was having issue with Terry Gross's attendance to our meeting, and it appears that she's been able to rejoin. So go ahead. And Terry, we do apologize for the difficulty.
Chair Judy, I believe we're looking for a motion for item 7 to adopt the changes.
Great, thank you.
Chair Jordy, I'll make a motion to adopt resolution 2021-03 as presented.
I'll second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Can we have a roll call? Or I want to back up. I think we were about to ask for public comment, but now that we do have a new attendee, do we have any public comment in this item?
No public comment at this time.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, so can we have a roll call?
Yes, and Richard Shoemaker is joining our meeting. Ms. Shatmeyer,
Yes.
Ms. Forrester,
Yes.
Ms. Cavanis,
Yes.
thank you. Mr. Jurdy,
Yes.
Ms. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Cromer,
Aye.
Mr. Shoemaker,
I would give it to Jim Anderson if he's in attendance for this item, and I may be in and out due to connection issues. So I will have no audio or video.
thank you. Ms. Harris
Aye.
and Mr. Anderson.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So now we're on to similar companion item for PEPRA members.
Thank you, Chair Judy. Members of the board, Resolution 2021-04 defines pensionable compensation for our PEPRA members. It includes the same changes that were reflected in Resolution 3 just adopted. Again, we're looking for a motion to approve these changes, which were mostly typos and cleanups.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, do we have any public comment on this item?
No public comment at this time?
Okay, thank you. All right, can we have a roll call?
Yes. Ms. Shetmeyer,
Yes.
Ms. Forrester,
Yes.
Ms. Cavanis,
Yes.
Mr. Jurdy,
Yes.
Ms. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Cromer,
Aye.
Ms. Harris,
Aye.
Mr. Anderson.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, well, now we are on to discussion of the administrative report.
Thank you, Chair Jurdy. I wanted to update the board that the upgrade to the pension gold environment that had been postponed is being scheduled. This has been delayed as long as we could allow. This will provide no functionality changes, but just an upgrade to the servers and to security for the servers that our systems run on. That will be scheduled in July. Following completion of the server upgrade, we will be looking at scheduling the PG secure test, which is part of our business continuity plan when we have disasters and emergencies. That test should occur sometime in the fall, September or October timeframe after the completion of the update. Additionally, there is a Stackers legislative update attached to your packets. If you have any questions regarding any item, I'm happy to entertain questions.
Any questions? Not seeing any. Thank you for your report, Doris. Do we have any public comments on this agenda item? Do we have any public comments on this agenda item?
I'm sorry, no public comment at this time.
Okay, all right. All right, thanks. So I think that takes us to general board member items. Any board member items? Jerry.
I would like to ask when we're going to be able to go to in-person meetings. Richard's in and out. I'm always struggling. It would be awfully nice to start actually seeing people in person. Maybe I'm incorrect to assume that everybody is vaccinated, but knowing you all, I think you probably are. Is this governed by county policy, or is it up to us as an independent entity?
I think
So if I may, through the chair, I mean, I think we could have some limited discussion, but this is kind of an issue that is probably one that merits being on the agenda and having a full discussion with notice. But I think a brief response is appropriate.
at this time, we have been adhering to the county's requirements for COVID precautions. The governor's executive order allowing the relaxing of the public meeting requirements to allow virtual meetings is set to expire at the end of September. We would be looking potentially to find a space that might be a little bit larger to accommodate our board meetings, since our boardroom is so small and there's no capacity for any type of social distancing in there. So we will look at those items and come back to the board.
Doris, is it realistic to get this on the agenda at our next meeting?
Yes, I'm happy to put that on the agenda at the next meeting.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other board member items? Okay. Well, then that will take us to our closed session items. And Sherry.
The part is an open session item. It's just the board deliberations that are in.
Oh, that's true. Okay. Sherry?
Okay, I expect the historical benefit review project to negatively impact my current financial position as a 40+ year active employee, as well as negatively impacting my future MSERA benefit. With this, I may or may not have the need to challenge MSERA's correction as to my own impacts. Therefore, I feel I can no longer be impartial on this topic and should not engage in privileged discussions with the Board of Retirement about potential litigation relating to them. I will recuse myself from closed session discussions relating to this project, but not for the other two items. So I won't go into closed session with you on these two.
Okay, great. All right, let's go to the open session portions of items 11 and 12.
Chair Jurdy, the first item for item 11 is the appeal by Beverly Rutler. Ms. Rutler will have up to 10 minutes to appeal to the board. After she completes her discussion, I'll do a follow-up with my comments, again, no more than 10 minutes, and then we can move on to the following appeal.
If I may, through the chair, since this is the first appeal that the board has heard, maybe just a little brief background, consistent with what the board decided back at one of its prior meetings. The executive director is correct. The member will have an opportunity to speak first for 10 minutes. Then Doris will present the staff's position. You have an opportunity to ask questions of either side if you like. And then the board will move into closed session to deliberate. And you'll be deciding whether or not to grant the appeal. You'll then come back into open session once you've completed your deliberations. And assuming you have no further questions or issues, you'll make a motion in open session whether to grant or deny the appeal. So unless there's any questions, we can proceed. There will be an opportunity, by the way, for public comment at the conclusion of the presentations and your questions.
Okay, so I believe Ms. Rutler is up next.
Great. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I've kind of written things down so I don't get emotional, because it's a very emotional time for me. As I indicated in my statement of claim dated 2/20/21, I believe the lack of appropriate records of my workers' comp cases and payroll records at the time of my recalculation has contributed to the mistakes in my buyback time and contributions to the retirement system. First of all, I want to add there, when I asked for my file, I mean, they sent it to me, but it was such in a chaotic mess, you couldn't understand anything, for one thing. And mind you, it's been almost 20 years since I retired. I'm 76 years old. Because of MSERA's staff's lack of training, understanding, skill set, and expertise at the time of my retirement calculation, it has caused me great harm. At the time, I was leave without pay on state disability, which in my settlement, Mendocino County was to pay back state disability that I received. It was my understanding and obviously IMSARA's at the time that my leave without pay time was to be included in my service time. If I had been told I would need to buy back that time, I would have done so before I retired. IMSARA's incompetency and alleged mistake at that time has harmed me financially, emotionally, and physically by causing this stressful situation in my late 70s. I would like to request a legal review to assure the accuracy of the review of my case and interface with workers' comp, state disability, and leave without pay county time. Additionally, should I have been presented an option to purchase that leave without pay time prior to my retirement? Per letter from Doris dated 2/1/21, she had indicated we had discussed this, and she said, however, the statement, I had indicated to her that I assumed, and obviously Sarah did at the time, gave me that time. She said, the statement not supported by county's past or current practices of which I am aware, nor by the records available in your case. First of all, when they started recalculating my case, they didn't even have my workers' comp case. They didn't look into any of that. I'm the one that had to get it. They said they didn't have access to it. I got it and provided it. And I believe that if I get a legal review, it would assure to me that that interface with those other workers' comp and state disability, I would just, I would feel better that, that I was given a fair opportunity. I think it should be a legal review. I think it should go to your attorney. And then my other question I have is, I noticed that some of my documents and my information has been put out with the agenda. Is that appropriate? I'm just asking that question. I've had many people say, did you see that your information's on there, that you had a workers' comp case? And I'm just asking that question, whether that should be reviewed again by the board. I'm just asking that, I would feel better about the whole thing if there's a legal review of my case, because I feel like I should have been given that opportunity. And obviously, Sarah thought that it was appropriate, and it's been almost 20 years. And this has just been so difficult for my husband, who is 80, and me in my late 70s, to have this come up at this time, especially after losing the insurance, which was supposed to be part of our benefit package. That's old news, but that was it's like reliving all of that again, which has been very costly to us financially. And I'm just asking for that review, your consideration, to at least have a legal review done of what happened when they did my retirement calculation before I retired.
Looking to council, is this, if Ms. Butler is concluded, is this the time for questions from board members of her?
You can do it now, or you can do it after the presentation of the executive director.
Okay, we'll do it at the conclusion. Okay. All right. Are you concluded, Ms. Butler?
At this time.
Okay, we have going to the director.
Thank you, Chair Jurdy. Ms. Rutler's benefit was recalculated as part of the correction project. She retired effective September 1st of 2002, concurrently with an application for a service-connected disability retirement. At the time of her retirement, her workers' compensation claims remained open. She was on leave during parts of 1992, 93, 2001, and 2002. And that time was not deducted from her service total when her benefit was originally calculated. That leave without pay totals 1.4615 years, which resulted in the reduction of her benefit of roughly $97 per month. At the time she retired, the workers' case were open and had not been settled. They weren't accepted and settled until May of 2004, approximately 20 months after her retirement. The compromise and release agreements do not address retirement contributions or service credit in MSERA. Further, MSERA never received contributions from either the county or the member for the period of time in question. There is no mechanism that would allow a payment of contributions by the county or a member to occur after retirement. The County Employees Retirement Law, Section 31641, says service means uninterrupted employment of any persons appointed or elected for the period of time, A, for which deductions are made from his compensation earnable from the county or district for such service while he is a member of the retirement system. Therefore, under the county retirement law, no service credit would be provided to Ms. Rutler for the period of time she was on leave without pay. MSERA filed a voluntary correction plan with the Internal Revenue Service to address a number of operational issues that occurred over a number of years. None of those errors were the faults of our members. MSERA is required to correct the deficiency in accordance with federal statutes and IRS regulations in order to maintain the tax qualified status of the plan. The board has acknowledged the hardship to retirees resulting from these circumstances and has sought to minimize the adverse impact to retirees by not recouping any overpaid benefits from retirees such as Ms. Rutler, but rather to include those losses in the unfunded liability of the plan that will be made up to MSERA over time through employer contributions, provided that the IRS accept this proposed correction methodology. Unfortunately, from an administrative perspective, I do not see a mechanism that would allow us to provide the resolution requested by Ms. Rutler. And that sums my comments. Were available for questions.
Okay. Do we have any questions for either the administrator or from Ms. Rutler? Jerry.
I'd like to know, in reviewing this, what is necessary about actually putting private, what I would consider to be private health records out.
Jeff can speak to this, but I did have discussions with counsel and fiduciary counsel prior to agendizing anything. And the information is relevant to the board's consideration of her case. And the fact that there was a workers' compensation claim is not protected information. No specific medical information was provided. Jeff, if you have anything to add to that.
I'll just add that the filing of a workers' compensation claim is public information. And as the executive director stated, we're not getting into any of the substance of any medical conditions.
Okay, thank you.
Julie?
Sorry about that. My question is about timing, I suppose. Ms. Rutler has stated that she had a workers' compensation claim open past her retirement date through just 2004 when it got settled, and that she was not notified that she was able to have a buyback. And so I'm wondering, what is the practice say for, had her case not been open for a few years after her retirement? I'm hearing maybe a disconnect there on the notification. So I'm wondering, how does that happen with employees?
There isn't the capacity to purchase service after a member retires. If the workers' compensation case had been settled or she had been notified, and I don't know the status of this, the purchase would have had to have occurred prior to her retirement.
And so was she notified of that opportunity?
I do not know that information. I believe Ms. Rutler says she was not notified. I do not have that information in front of me, and I do not know if that was documented.
Any other questions? Quincy?
Yeah, this goes to Julie's question, and maybe Ms. Rutler can answer this. My understanding is that she and the Retirement Association did not separate her leave without pay from her credit, from her actual service time. So there wouldn't have been an offer to purchase it back because they considered it as complete. So I don't believe that was ever offered because it wasn't considered, it was miscalculated where the leave without pay was included in her actual service time. Is that correct, Ms. Rutler?
Right, but because of their incompetency and their mistakes in calculating my retirement, they were very aware of the workers' comp case going on. They were aware of the details. And because of that, they were very aware of it. And their mistake, I mean, if they'd have said at the time, you're going to lose out, or you have the opportunity to buy back, I would have done it at that time. And I think should be entitled to having a legal review of this to make sure that in fact, $97 doesn't seem like much maybe to any of you, but it does to me at this stage in my life. And it's been so stressful. And, I just feel that at the time, because of the retirement mistake, I suffered for it. If there was an opportunity for that, if they hadn't made their mistake, I would have been told, if you retire now, this is what's going to happen. You'll lose out or you won't be able to buy back that time. I feel like there should be a review of that.
Jim?
Thank you. This is a little more general, but it goes to the case. Is that with a disability application out and or a disability retirement application kind of running consistent with a workers' compensation application, is it fairly common that the workers' compensation is not determined at the time that the person ceases working, or is it normally concluded prior to a disability retirement?
The two are separate and unrelated, and in some instances, a workers' compensation claim may be appealed and not settled for a period of time when someone continues to remain technically employed with the county. The issue of filing the service-connected disability application while concurrently service retiring is allowed under the law. And because the service-connected disability benefit is higher because it would be tied to 50% of final salary of the member in this case, I don't know if the staff was just not careful in their review of the record, or they didn't realize the leave without pay was there, or I cannot speak to what staff knew or believed or thought or did at that point in time. We can see in the records that there are periods of leave without pay that were not accounted for when the initial calculation was done. But there were several independent actions going on. The service-connected disability application was separate from the workers' comp, which was separate from the service retirement. They all sort of intertwine a little bit, but they're all separate processes and have their own separate timelines.
Julie?
So my question, I think, is for Ms. Rutler, because she mentioned she wanted council to review, I believe, the failure of notification, if I understand correctly, on the leave without pay buyback. Is that what you were also seeking, Ms. Rutler?
Right, to see if I should have been given that opportunity when they were calculating my retirement benefits before I retired. I would just feel better that, if there wasn't some legal reason why they should have notified me. It seems to me that they should. And when Doris was talking about, I know a lot of you weren't even around at that time when all this went down, and I understand that, but that doesn't make the board not responsible for the kind of things that happened in determination of all these people that are having to deal with this. The lady that spoke earlier about how stressful this was, I can totally relate to that. I mean, it has caused me even physical illness over this. It has been so stressful for my husband and I, and not only my case, but my husband's got a case pending too. So it's really, really been stressful. And I feel like I should be at least allowed, because the county made that mistake, the board made that mistake. I think that, you know, I should be allowed to have a legal counsel just to see if I should have been given that opportunity.
So my question, I guess, is for Doris, because, or maybe Jeff, as far as our tax counsel, I don't know that they can do both sides and review for the retiree and work on behalf of Sarah board. So is what she's even requesting something that our tax counsel can do?
So if I may, through the chair, I think you're correct to ask that question of Doris. Doris is the advocate on behalf of the system, and I am not her counsel in this matter. I am the board's counsel. So Doris will not be attending the closed session. I probably should have made that clear. So Doris has consulted with counsel in preparing her position today. So I think the question about notice or lack thereof is an appropriate question to ask Doris. And that's something that the board can discuss in closed session upon the conclusion of the arguments.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay.
So, I'm sorry, did you want Doris to respond to the question of lack of notice, or do you feel you understand the issue?
Well, do you have a response that you want to make, Doris?
I'm happy to look into the issue further. I believe that, and is our process, we inform people of the options they have to, improve their benefit by letting them know what service times may be available to purchase. That may not have been done in Ms. Rutler's case because nobody in the association now was there, I think, at the time she retired, but I certainly can look into that and get back to the board.
Maybe I could just ask sort of a more global question. Jim asked sort of a more global question. So if someone were today in a similar situation and were to, I guess, leave service and but they had a workers' comp claim in dispute, what would be the process of handling the case today?
The workers' comp claim itself is not germane to the retirement issue, but the member would have been notified of the ability to purchase any qualifying service periods, which would have included medical leave without pay.
And for clarification, is that available to PEPRA, pension reform employees, or is that something that was only available at a point for non-PEPRA members?
My understanding is that leave without pay for medical reasons is still available to PEPRA members.
Okay. Any other questions at this point? Okay, as I understand the process, we will now go on to the other issue in open session before going into closed session.
So you probably should check though first if there's any public comment on this matter.
Okay. Do we have any public comment on this item?
I'm not seeing any public comment at this time. Correction.
I'd like to say one more thing. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Somebody indicated, I can't even remember who did now, I'm so rattled, indicated that they didn't know whether the attorney, your attorney could be asked about the case or whatever. I know that my husband's case had been sent to an attorney for review. We haven't got the recalculation letter yet, but I know it was sent to the attorney. That's all I'm asking is for the same thing, just to have it reviewed. Should I have been given that opportunity, I definitely would have bought that time back.
Okay, all right. Looks like we're ready to go to the next item.
It'll be just a moment while Judy brings in the other applicant.
I do see a hand raised by Terry Gross. Maybe this might be public comment. Terry, are you trying to make public comment? You're muted right now.
I'm having a bit of trouble. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I wanted some clarification regarding Jeff's comments about who the tax council represents. I found it a bit concerning to separate out. I mean, I understand Jeff is going to sit with the board during closed session, but to represent tax counsel or fiduciary counsel is not also advising the board. I would like some clarification about that. Or if you can't address that, to please in the future be clear about who has been advising the board about how to proceed with the IRS and with the review.
Okay, thank you for the question. If we don't get an answer to that question stated publicly right now, it might be coming out of closed session. But Doris, do you have a comment on that question?
I'd be happy to address it. It's really more of a legal question, I think. I'm happy to try to take the executive director off the hook. So fiduciary counsel and tax counsel have been advising the board on the project itself. With regard to individual appeals, although perhaps not even legally required to ensure even the appearance of a conflict of interest, the executive director has been consulting exclusively on the appeals with fiduciary counsel, and I've remained separate from that. And so Ashley Dunning could have been here today, but I guess a decision was made between the two of them that Doris felt like she could present the case on behalf of MSARA. And again, as I mentioned, she will not be attending the closed session. If Ashley Dunning were here today to present the case on behalf of MSARA, she would not attend a closed session with the board. So that is the process that's been set up.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. Okay, any other public comments on this item before we go to the next? Okay, right. I think we should go to the next.
It'll be just a moment while Judy brings the attendee up to participant so the applicant can speak.
I'm going to try to see if I can make this chair a little taller. Get out of the hole.
Our attendee is calling in on the phone, and we'll have to remain in attendee status, apparently. Trying to unmute. Is this Dina?
Yeah, it is. Good morning.
Hi, Dina.
Good morning, TL.
Is that? Oh, let's see if it
might be too much.
Much better.
Jerry, you might want to mute your camera.
Yeah.
Are you guys still there?
Yes, we are. Please go ahead.
Okay, so I asked to be heard by you guys because of my concern. I got a letter stating that basically they're going to dock my whatever the benefit, $100, approximately $100 a month less than what I'm getting, what I was getting, and they based this on in 2003, the mental health department, which I was an employee of, it was Beth Martinez who was the director at that time. She decreased all of our hours to 32 hours a week, so that they could financially budget or balance a budget of the mental health department. So that was for about 3 or 4 months. I can't recall right off. But so the contributions were lowered, evidently. However, you know, what the outcome was is that now all of a sudden they need to be corrected. So, you know, my complaint is, one, why do I have to shoulder the correction, that it wasn't my fault, that, you know, there was a mistake here. So I'm being penalized for that. That's number one. And number two is that, you know, if you look at that year, because I did a lot of overtime in the mental health department because we didn't have staff, basically. So I got to do a lot of overtime. If you look at the contributions, you know, they went up to $415 for a month, and it fluctuated a lot. So, and that doesn't really count as far as time for, you know, the long time, for the time that I worked at the department. So it doesn't contribute to that, the overtime. So I really don't think this is, and I didn't get a letter stating that I could contact an attorney to help me with this process, you know. So I'm just sort of concerned that, you know, again, that I'm shouldering a mistake that I did not make, and I have to pay for that. That doesn't seem right at all.
For clarification, how we're going to advise the applicant how much time she has to speak. I think she has more time.
More time now, or more time? What time? Which time are you talking about? The time I worked or time now?
Time to speak. I'm looking at council. How much? I think we were providing 10 minutes. Is it the policy?
Oh, you said 3 in the letter.
So you have 10 minutes. Just want to make sure you know that.
I mean, that's about it. I'm not going to go on and on about it, you know, because it was like 1, 2, 3 months. So $100 a month is going to be docked from my benefit, my fiscal benefit. And I did ask for how they calculated this, and I never got that. What I got was a bunch of, well, I don't know what I got. It's interest cards and pay schedules. And it's just a bunch of stuff, and it's duplicated, so it looks like massive amount. But that's my concern right now, is there's just 3 months adding up to $100 a month now. It seems inappropriate. It doesn't. The calculations don't seem right, and it doesn't seem like I should be shouldering the problem of the mistake.
Okay, I do see a hand raised. Julie, you have a question or comment?
Yeah, I had the same question that actually we heard from earlier from retiree Terry Gross regarding the calculator, the actuary's calculator. And I don't know what year this occurred. Looks like
It was 2003.
I'll address the calculator issue in my comments when it's my turn to speak.
okay, and also the insurance, maybe that was there any possible for errors by the actuary at the time, for errors that they might make in these calculations or recommendations? So I'm just interested in any information you have there.
Okay, Jim.
Thank you. And Dorsey's may be in your comments, but and I hope they are, because they're of interest to me, is in the RAP program that was provided by the actuary. At that time, would that have also been used by a retirement specialist that was essentially checking and confirming the accuracy of a calculation? I mean, were both the both the person who was calculating the retirement and the person who was doing the quality control using a flawed document or flawed, excuse me, tool? And secondly, was it used by other, in my understanding was it was used by other 1937 Act systems at that time?
I do not know if it was used by any other 37X system, not to my knowledge, but I wasn't around back then. The issue was not with the programming of the calculator in as much as it was improper data entry into it. And I will explain that in more detail when the applicant, Ms. Ortiz, has wrapped up her comments and there's no more board questions and I provide my response.
Well, I don't have any more comments. You know, that's it. This is Dean Ortiz. I don't have any more comments. This is what I'm saying is that it's 3 months that you guys made a mistake. You know, the department made a mistake, and yet I'm shouldering the responsibility of that mistake. It doesn't seem right. You know, if I hit another car, I'm responsible for it, right? That's my mistake. But it would seem the same thing with this. You know, this is the department's mistake. It's not mine. And it seems like a lot of money for just 3 months.
Okay, Mr. Ortiz, if you're concluded, please stay on the line and the administrator will make her presentation and there could well be questions of you at the conclusion of her presentation.
Sure.
Julie, you have any questions or comments?
Yeah, just one more procedurally that I'm wondering if the appellants may have a brief statement opening, but if they, I'm assuming they can reserve their time if they're granted 10 minutes to hold it to the end. So if they have a brief opening and that maybe takes them 2 minutes, that they can reserve their 8 minutes for a later time. Just trying to understand the procedural process there.
If that's a question for me, I think the answer is yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. So now we'll hear from the administrator and of course we'll have more questions later.
Thank you, Chair Jurdy. Yes, Ms. Ortiz's benefit was recalculated as part of the benefit review project. The revised calculation corrected for 2 issues. One was the slight overstatement of service credit, and that was approximately 3 or 4 months from January of 2003 to April 2003, where she only worked 64 hours per week, per pay period. But the initial calculation did not adjust down for that, and it was treated as being full-time, 80 hours per pay period. The effect of that correction for the reduction in that little bit of service for those months only reduced the benefit by $3.52. And this was in my letter to Ms. Ortiz dated March 21st. The other issue is the one with the RAP calculator. The calculator is essentially an Excel product that was put together by MSARA's actuary at that time. And it came to staff's attention, I believe in 2011, that if staff did not appropriately attribute the members' contributions to each period of service they entered into the calculator, that the calculator generated the wrong amount. This would not have been something that a staff member would have been able to catch during the review process. So in that calculator, you have to account for several different periods of employment that Ms. Ortiz had. She had 3 periods of employment. She also had that little period of time, the 3 months where she was only working 80% of full time. Where it was also enhanced service after the date that the benefit formula was increased. And all of those different pieces are laid out on separate lines of the calculator. Ms. Ortiz's total contributions that she paid in during her career get split among those different service periods. At the time, the person who did the calculation just kind of threw in and plugged some numbers for the contributions that were associated with some of those other periods of employment. And they didn't realize that by not accurately apportioning the members' contributions to the specific service periods resulted in improper benefit calculation. One would not expect that necessarily to occur because member contributions in and of themselves are not used in the benefit formula that calculates the allowance of a member. So you would not expect the member's contribution to have any effect on the actual benefit formula. And that was actually explained in that March 22nd letter, excuse me, where I ran through the formula and how that benefit is calculated. But the error was in the way staff was utilizing that software piece. And when it came to staff's knowledge, which I believe was in 2011, that they needed to appropriately figure out how much of the members' contributions should be attributed to that 3-month period where they only worked 64 hours a pay period, it resulted in the proper calculation of the benefit. The initial calculation where they just kind of put in some ballpark numbers and sort of plugged in figures resulted in an overcalculation of the benefit. And that's primarily where the majority of the correction comes from, associated at $92.51 of the initial benefit change is related to the way the software was utilized. So again, we understand that none of these errors were the member's fault. We do have an obligation to provide the benefit that is provided for in law. And when we calculate the benefit according to the serial, that benefit is reduced by approximately $100 a month in Ms. Ortiz's case. Again, the board has acknowledged the potential hardships for members and has tried to minimize that by not collecting back any overpaid benefits from the members. But we do need to bring ourselves into compliance with federal law and IRS regulations in order to maintain the tax qualified status of the plan. And that concludes my comments.
Okay, thank you. Jim.
Doris, thank you for your explanation. And it's so, just to be very clear for me, in my own words, is that the RAP calculator would have calculated the correct retirement benefit had staff been appropriately apportioning the retirees' contributions to the right periods of time.
Correct. We still use that RAP calculator to recalculate these individuals who retired prior to implementation of the pension system. So if they utilize it correctly, it returns the correct pension allowance.
Thank you.
Do we have any questions of the administrator or of the applicant?
I have a question. It's
Okay.
Richard.
Go ahead.
Okay, in the explanation that we were just giving, or let's start with, our pension calculations have always been communicated as you've served 10 years or 12 years of service. And I believe everybody would say if you started on a certain date and you ended your service 12 years later, you served 12 years. So what is going on in this calculation is there is actually an FTE ratio applied to some level of these calculations that fall outside the highest year or the 3 highest years, whatever the final calculation is currently.
Service is actually prorated to account for periods of covered membership where the member worked less than full time. For MSARA's purposes, we allow covered participation for employees who work at least 80% of full time, but they only get 80% of a year's worth of service credit for that 1 year of 80% employment. Yes.
So in this case, it was presented that X number of years was worked, but the appropriate calculation was X number of years times point whatever during some period of time during those years. Is that correct?
Yes, for a period of 3 months, she only received 80% of full-time credit.
Okay, this is a bit of a side comment to the actual hearing, but that should be very well clarified to all recipients of retire benefits. That's for sure. Thank you for your answers.
Okay. Any other questions of either the administrator or the applicant? Okay. Ms. Ortiz, do you have any concluding comments?
Yes, I do. So another thing here too was that, you know, when we were, it wasn't volunteer that we did this, you know, that I had to cut back. It was the department head's requirement that we cut back, you know, these hours. So it's three months. But also there was no mention of, you know, paying extra into the retirement to correct this either. There was never any mention of that either. So it's really confusing. And, you know, I did read that letter, and it's March 22nd, actually, that it was sent. And, you know, I'm not an accountant, and I'm not a retirement accountant. And, you know, the jargon that's used is way out of my league. You know, I mean, it doesn't make any sense to me. So with that, you know, I wish it would have been more layman's terminology than whatever this is. So I think that's it.
And I apologize, Ms. Ortiz. I tried
So
to.
apology's not going to get it because, you know, it is $100 a month. So that, you know, you don't have to apologize. You're saying you put this into RAP and calculate it and blah, 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 blah. Well, you know, you might as well be talking Chinese as far as I'm concerned, because I don't understand one damn word you're saying as far as that is concerned. And then I got it that it's broken into quarterly or thirds or something of that sort, and just look at the highest. See, I would have preferred that than all this would put it into a RAP calculator and blah, 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 blah. But again, I did not make the mistake, you know, I did not make the mistake. And if the federal government wants it corrected, then I would think it would be corrected on you guys, on the department's shoulders, not on mine. And it just makes me think that as a, you know, a staff person for the department, you know, a lot of things have been taken away from us retirees. Our benefits have been decreased a lot. You know, our health benefits were taken away. And I wouldn't have stayed at the department that long if I wouldn't. That's the reason I stayed, is because I wanted to, you know, have the health benefits after I retired. And that was taken away. And then now this, you know, it seems like you guys are just the county's just picking money away from especially the retirees. And I know you guys did it when I was working there too. You were trying to cut back, you know, like increasing our insurances and all that kind of stuff. So it's real discouraging. It's real discouraging. And I'm sorry that I'm sounding really disgusted, but I am. It's really discouraging, and it's mean also. It's mean that the county's doing this, not just to myself, but to a lot of other people too. So that's it.
Okay. Not seeing any. Do we have any public comment on this item?
Yes, I have one public comment.
Thank you very much. This is Kendall Smith. This is a comment that probably or might go to Ms. Ortiz's minor calculation in her benefit. I wasn't clear reading the documents if it did apply or not, but I think the board should be aware that there are, I believe, 2 periods of time, perhaps both in the 90s, I would believe, and I really don't know the specific time periods, but there were 2 periods of time, I believe, that the county more or less required, at least unofficially, reduction in hours. So that would have gone to budget to make up for budget deficits. I believe there were 2 times that this occurred. At the time, employees were told there would be no impact to their benefits. I recall this in the workplace when I was there, and I've talked to numerous retirees that have stated varying comments on this same issue. So I believe that there might be an interface between the county retirement system and the county of Mendocino on this issue. So I would suggest, given that there will be subsequent appeals, that you very seriously look into this vis-a-vis research with HR, with county council, because in fact, if employees were told this, there could be a disconnect between the workplace commitments that were made and the county retirement system. So perhaps the county retirement system was either unaware of this, didn't realize as time would march on that this would become a benefit issue. So there may be something that you need to look at here. So I'm just advising that you take a look at that. It may or may not affect Ms. Ortiz's benefit, but I think in other ones to come, with the various conversations I've had, this seems to be an issue that a number of retirees are speaking about. So my recommendation is that you look into this before you make decisions based on these reductions of hours that occurred at various points of time. And if you can find any documentation of what the agreements were, because numerous retirees have said to me that they've given various versions of the same theme, and I do recall it myself. So if this is becoming an issue with retirement recalculations, you really need to look to the county of Mendocino for perhaps a resolution of this. Thank you.
Okay, do we have any other public comment?
No other public comment at this time.
Okay, so a reminder for the procedure here, the board will be going into closed session with some participants in the closed session, and then we will go back into open session, and where everybody will be in the open session. Judy, for a refresher, how I think you're going to hand off the meeting to me for closed session.
Yes, I will in just a moment. Ms. Ortiz, I'm going to be removing you from the meeting at this time. Okay. So I have removed Doris and Sherry from the meeting,
It's Miss Rutler.
and Miss Rutler. One moment.
Judy, has everyone returned to the open session meeting?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Is Miss Ortiz back? I mean, I know we don't have a picture for her. She was a call-in. I just don't see her on the screen, but maybe she is.
No, she's not back. She's outside of the meeting. Yeah.
It looks as though she may have left the meeting. We're required to provide written notice in addition to the action at the actual meeting, but we'll see if we can get her back.
Excuse me for one moment.
Dan, do you think I have time to get a drink of water?
I think you probably do.
Thank you.
I'm sorry to take up everyone's time. I'm having difficulty allowing Miss Ortiz back into the meeting.
And Miss Rutler left while you were gone, Judy, just so you know.
She's in the meeting.
Oh, she's here.
All right, somebody dropped off. My list showed her, but good. Okay.
We lost Richard.
Oh, Richard.
I'm gonna ask Robert to assist.
Are we in closed session still, or are we open?
I think we are in open session. Judy, just to confirm, is Ms. Ortiz calling in? She's trying to get in the meeting.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Richard's back.
Yep.
It looked like we had an attendee for a minute, but then it dropped it again.
I apologize, there's not three of me. So I've put a call in to Dina. She did not answer the phone. And she has not yet called me back. I did ask for a return call.
So for clarification, did she leave the meeting through her phone call? Did she disconnect?
We had to disconnect her for the meeting to go into closed session because she was calling in by phone. So she has to call back into the meeting.
Okay. I guess I'm looking to Jeff as to how to proceed.
So when we disconnected her, did we tell her that we would be reaching back out to her?
I told her earlier in prior discussions that I would be reaching back out to her.
Okay. And you've reached out to her? So, and just so we're all clear, the policy says that once you make your vote on the appeal today, that we're required to send in writing within 10 days of today, the final decision in writing to the parties. So she will get written notice. So I'm okay with proceeding if we've, it sounds like we advised her and we've tried to reach out to her, and I don't know, 10 minutes or so, 15 minutes has gone by. So I'm comfortable proceeding with the vote on both matters.
Okay, makes sense to me. Okay, all right, so we have two items. Let's go to item number 11, Ms. Rutley's appeal first.
So just to be clear, we're looking for a motion on whether to grant or deny the appeal.
I'll make a motion to uphold the recalculation and reduction of benefit for Beverly Rutler's appeal.
So am I understanding the motion that you're voting, you're making a motion to deny the appeal?
Yes, thank you.
I'll second.
Okay. Can we have a roll call?
Ms. Schotmeyer?
I recuse.
Ms. Forrester?
Yes.
Ms. Cavanaugh?
Yes.
Mr. Jurdy?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Cromer?
Aye.
Mr. Shoemaker? Ms. Harris?
Aye.
Mr. Anderson?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, then takes us to item 12, Ms. Ortiz's appeal.
Shall I try calling her one more time?
Sure.
Okay. She's unavailable at this time. She had to go to work. So.
Okay, do we have a motion?
Chair Jordy, I'll make a motion to deny the appeal from Claudina Ortiz.
Second.
Okay, can we have a roll call?
Ms. Forrester?
Yes.
Ms. Cavanaugh?
Yes.
Mr. Jurdy?
Yes.
Ms. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Cromer,
Aye.
Ms. Harris,
Aye.
Mr. Anderson.
Yes.
Thank you.
And I'm just looking to county council or to board council. We could assume that there are some other retirees who are probably watching today's meeting, and they may be trying to read the tea leaves as to why the board voted in a way. And I'm just wondering, would it be appropriate to comment on some of the items that the board members were looking for in an appeal?
They will receive a written decision in the mail, but it's basically just consistent with the documents that were provided and relied on.
Would it be appropriate for the board, any board member right now, just to say what they were looking for in an appeal? Because there may be future appeals coming in.
I think that we want to be careful and judge each appeal on their own merit.
Yeah. Okay.
So
maybe not giving any indication of the kinds of information the board members might have been looking for the basis for an appeal.
I'm not sure that I think we could have a future agenda item when we talk about the project generally have some discussion about appeals, but I don't want to suggest that we're prejudging them in any way. If somebody wants to make a general comment, they can do that.
Okay, well, maybe it's more appropriate in that setting. Catherine?
Well, I would just make a general comment because Ms. Rutler is still on the line and Ms. Ortiz isn't at the moment, but just to say that this is heart-wrenching for all of us to see what individuals are going through, but we have to uphold what the law says. And I think what Dan may have been getting at is that if there's anything to indicate that the law is being violated, then that is something that would be a cause for an appeal. But we have to follow the law, and we have to, even though it's hard, we have to do what we have to do. That's all I need to say.
Thank you, Kathy.
Okay, great. Thank you. I think that was kind of getting at, I think, what I think might be helpful for these applicants and potentially other applicants who may or may not decide to appeal. Okay, we are really overdue for a break before we go to our next items. So it's 11:15. Maybe we could come back at, I don't know, 11:25.
We're now we'll be moving into closed session, right? There's no more agenda items.
Okay, other than reporting on a closed session. So, okay.
Right.
So maybe we could give ourselves till 11:25 before we re-engage in closed session.
Thank you.
No, I'm close.
session.
Beverly Rutler is raising her hand to speak again. Do you want to allow her to speak?
I think we had already intended to be in closed session at this point.
will have to get off at the
And Judy, are we ready to go?
Let me confirm. Where is it? Great. It appears I've lost contact with IS. Maybe not. Let's see.
I see Scott in the
Okay,
as a
we're back.
panelist.
Thank you. We're back.
I can report out now.
Yes, please.
The board voted unanimously to grant the service-connected disability retirement application of Kevin Brannick, and the executive director received her performance evaluation.
Okay, well, that concludes our action items for today, and I believe it concludes our meeting at 12:22. See everyone here back next month's meeting.
Take care,
Thanks.
everybody.
Everybody, thank you. Thanks